Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for the Esports Connection. The one show, the only show that connects you with the top people competing, playing, and making the esports world go round, with the man at the center of it, Harrison Griffith. Hey, Harrison.
Thank you for that glowing intro, Paul. I appreciate that a lot. Like he said, we are the Esports Connection, and I am your host, Harrison Griffith. And like you viewers, I am an avid esports player and enthusiast. So I put this show together as sort of a place for people to meet and gather together and connect with others in the community. Kind of like an online campfire where esports enthusiasts can gather, swap stories and information about the market. And we're going to learn about the world of esports, learning what's happening from the people making it happen, like our guest today, Tyler Mendoza. Welcome, Tyler.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So, Tyler, you are the esports supervisor at the Anaheim Family YMCA. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I run a program that does esports, but yeah.
Cool. So, tell us a little bit about your program.
So, I work for the Anaheim Family YMCA, and I work for a program called Anaheim Achieves, which is an after-school program. I do that out of Magnolia High School in Anaheim. Our program offers a bunch of different things. So, we do like Dungeons and Dragons, we do dance, we do art, we do a lot of different things, and one of those things being esports. It's all free, and just all students just show up, do whatever they want with us, or do any one of our clubs that we offer.
That sounds great. Yeah. So you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons. Have you seen the D&D movie yet?
Yes, it was amazing.
You have? Okay, all right. I'll put a pin in that. I do want to see it myself. But yeah, so you're working at the high school level mostly. What do you think about the educational value that esports has and can provide for young developing minds?
Well, I think that it's definitely, it's still very early on. Obviously, there's still a lot of people kind of evaluating everything, but it's definitely leaning more towards, we're seeing a lot of benefits towards like communication skills. You're teaching students leadership skills, critical thinking. There's a lot of different aspects to esports that, they kind of combine and give that fuller, or help build character and whatnot for students. So I think that it's very beneficial for students to participate in this just for a number of different reasons. And it definitely, the biggest being for me at least, is discipline. It helps them kind of be on top of things, practice, and learn about, this is like building a skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like any other sport, basically. Anybody could see the appeal in that, sending their kid to a high school to play on their varsity tennis team. You build leadership skills, get team building skills, all these kinds of benefits. And that kind of brings me to my next question, which is about traditional esports and traditional sports and the relationship they have to the esports. How do you see these two? Do you see these two intermingling, coexisting, or kind of developing independently?
I think it's probably going to be more along the lines of it having to be independent, just because I at this point, I just had this issue come up where I've had students who are trying to do like tennis or basketball, and they kind of have to pick and choose. Like, do I want to do the esports team, or do I want to go and do a more traditional sport? So I would love for it, obviously, for us to be able to like blend and be able to do things. But I think at this point, it's looking more like we might need to, have students pick and choose. Like, are you going to do this, or are you going to do that?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's understandable. So what do you think about generally the differences and also the similarities between traditional sports and esports? We were talking about that in studio a little bit earlier, but what do you think about these differences and similarities, and how does that impact the athletes differently?
Well, I think they're similar in the sense of, again, like we were just saying, it's building a skill, it's refining yourself, it's building teamwork, it's, being able to work with a team and being able to, I guess, make an attack plan, if you will, to be able to defeat the other team. So I see that it's similar in that way, but it's definitely different in the aspect of we kind of have to incorporate, it's a minor thing, but we kind of have to incorporate that physical component, because we don't want, obviously, the kids to just be sitting there for 3-4 hours, and not do anything physical. So I think that it's a little bit more involved in a sense, because we're having to kind of incorporate other aspects, like, the physical component, as it's not just built into what we're doing. We have to kind of go out of our way to make sure students aren't just, lethargic.
Which is a main, being lethargic. That's the main concern, I think, of parents, is that, they see their kids come home from school and they come home and play video games. They don't want to send their kid back to school and play video games. But I feel like if, they just need to talk to more people like you to convince them that, there really are benefits to this. There are people who are looking out for the mental and physical well-being of their children. And yeah, that kind of brings me to my next question, which is what are some of the challenges or barriers that esports still face in terms of mainstream acceptance or recognition?
Well, for me, I've been doing this for about 6 years now, and definitely very early on in my career of trying to get esports up and running at my program and at a district level, is just that perception, like that again, that we're just having kids just sit around, play video games, and not really do much. That there's more to this. That we're doing this for a purpose, and that it's not just to have fun. There's tangible skills that these students will be learning from this. That's probably the biggest one, is just getting that buy-in from not only just parents but also from the district early on. Again, they didn't want to give us all the money we needed, so we had to make do early on with what we had. These old computers that kids haven't been up, or these old computers that haven't been updated in years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're trying to play like these high-end esports titles on it, and it's just we're making it. We made it work, but it was not fun.
Made it work just on a very low frame rate, huh?
Yes. It's very much a slideshow.
More of a slideshow, yeah. No, that's funny. So yeah, that's all very important stuff here. I definitely wish there were more people like you representing esports out there in the world. But yeah, I wanted to back out a little bit and ask just how you got into esports and how you generally developed an interest in this initially.
So I kind of got myself into esports just because I applied for my job at the YMCA, and we were supposed to bring a club to it. Like was doing Dungeons and Dragons, but I kind of wanted to branch out into doing video games with students. So obviously I can't just have a bunch of students sitting around with like their Game Boys or whatever and just playing Pokemon together. That's not really gonna sell very well to the school and to parents. I'm gonna get pushback from that. So at the time, there was this game Overwatch that was kind of starting to blow up and get very popular, and I had heard that oh yeah, they're starting to do these really big tournaments and all this really cool stuff, and there's prize money, and all this stuff is going on, and I'm like, cool, that sounds kind of like what sport, that sounds like traditional sports. I can maybe kind of steer it that way. So slowly I started to get students involved, and we started to do Overwatch. Was the very first game that we started to do. We got that on our awesome little Dell Optiplexes, and again that fun little slideshow of practice that we'd go through, and we slowly built that up. And I would say that eventually we started with Overwatch. We started doing Super Smash Brothers because we started getting switches at all of our sites. So obviously Super Smash Bros. At the time was brand new, or the Ultimate was brand new. So we were like, okay, let's get students on that. That's a traditional esports title that I'd heard about. I've heard about these people going to these Super Smash Bros. Tournaments. So let's try and replicate that.
Great choice.
So we started doing that with the kids. That blew up. We got so much interest from that. And then COVID hit. That kind of put a little bit of a halt to our progress that we were making. And then once over COVID, we started doing Valorant, we started doing Overwatch. We were able to do online games with the kids and keep our esports program going. And then we got back, and because people were hearing about all this stuff going on online with like esports kind of picking up some steam, the district decided that they were like, hey, let's start pumping a ton of money into this. And they bought all of our high schools these really awesome gaming labs. So that's what we've been operating out of right now. And it is amazing. I love it. It's kind of crazy that it's the stuff that these students are playing on right now, at least at my site, and some of the other sites that are in our school district are pretty comparable to like what I buy.
Yeah. What's the saying? Tomorrow's luxuries are, yesterday's commodities, or something like that. Yeah. No, there's a lot there. But you talked a little bit about Overwatch, Valorant, and Super Smash Bros. Those seem to be your main games. And I wanted to ask you what you think generally as an organizer makes a game particularly well suited to esports. What like characteristics would you say you look out for?
Well, I look for something obviously that one is appealing. That's probably the biggest thing. That
popularity.
Yeah, it's popularity, because honestly there's a lot of games I would love to do, like Street Fighter and stuff like that, but unfortunately, kids are kind of like, oh, that's what old people play. And I'm like, fine,
Oh
whatever.
no, Street Fighter is an old people game
Yeah,
now.
it hurt me, but
Oh, that actually hurts me now. I'm sorry, sorry, keep going.
no, you're good. But um, it's the biggest one. Yeah, it's popularity. Just because obviously, if the kids aren't interested in the game, like they're not gonna want to compete at it. So that's the biggest determining factor. And then obviously the next thing is this something I can show to parents and not get my head ripped off.
Yeah.
But besides that, is obviously, is it something that, I guess, is there a team component to it? That's the biggest, obviously. You know, you can't really have an esports team if there's no team component to it. So the biggest one, that's why we started with Overwatch, is you have to have a team, you have to have a strategy, you have to think about your plan of attack, or else you're just going to get decimated. So I think that was opinion related. Is it centered on teamwork, and how can we use that to help elevate that to something that we can compete with?
Yeah, teamwork, that's just one of those central, things that you want. It's one of the core benefits of any traditional sport that you get, is from that. But yeah, I would say especially in like a post-COVID era where kids were forced to, be on computers for a year, I think that even just playing an online game like that forces you to learn communication skills with other people, it could be very important for those kids who just kind of wanted to play video games all day. They were at least forced to learn that. So I feel like it's that, and like you just pick up these skills as you kind of gradually play these games, and you sort of don't even realize it. And I feel like, that might be one of the reasons why parents have a hard time seeing, the educational value in esports, is because of that. Any thoughts on that, or?
Well, I think that for me, a lot of the programs that I do, like the Dungeons and Dragons, and then the esports component that I provide, I like that communication aspect, just because that's something that growing up I struggled with. I struggled with communication skills. So for me, I like being able to help students build those communication skills, how to coordinate things, how to, convey ideas to other people in a meaningful way. So for me, like esports especially, you need to be able to communicate with your team, or else it's just, you're gonna fall apart.
Yeah, no, that's that's a very important aspect of it, and I'm glad you recognize that for sure. So yeah, going back to the we were talking a little bit about video games and what makes them suitable for competitive play, and I was wondering, you also mentioned Dungeons and Dragons a lot, and I noticed that Dungeons and Dragons kind of gotten its way back into the cultural zeitgeist in a way. Like strange, it's like kind of like a zombie, it just keeps coming back. But I was wondering if there are any games in particular that you think are going to maybe dominate the scene in the future. Do you think have a promising future? Because there has been quite a few changes in, I think, the king slot, I guess you could say, of who's the number one esports. Because forever it was League of Legends.
Yes.
But now that's kind of, I feel like that era is kind of coming to a close. It's not just the big pull that it was, and that it used to be.
No, totally. Well, and I think it's like you were saying, it's constantly shifting. That's something I had to talk to the district about, because they're like, oh yeah, we can just buy like this one game and then we're good to go. And I'm like, no, you probably have to change it up every couple of years.
Yeah.
But what I honestly think is going to be kind of big is I really see Valorant. I think that that's going to be big, hopefully soon. I see it kind of growing, and I know I see a lot of interest from my students in that, and I hear a lot of buzz around it, and like on Reddit and stuff like that. So I think that I can see that maybe potentially, and again, of course, that's also made by the people who make League of Legends. I could potentially see that taking the crown, or even just Super Smash Brothers. That's kind of had a lot of staying power, since like Melee. That's just been constantly like a go-to for people, is just playing Super Smash Brothers for esports.
That's right. That's the thing I love about Super Smash Brothers, is that at least the older games, they didn't have a really viable online mode. So it kind of forced you to go to in-person tournaments and learn how to socialize.
No, totally.
So that's kind of why that's one of my favorite games. But yeah. So you have experience building esports teams for your school, right? I was wondering how you approach recruitment and team building generally, and what kind of qualities or skills you're looking for in potential players.
So for the process kind of starts obviously with me. I usually put out like ads. I go around and canvass the campus with like flyers. I talk to the people who do like the morning announcements and try to get announcements out. And I obviously announce to my students who participate in my program, hey, we're looking to get a team together for, let's just say, Valorant. After that, we host, usually over a course of 2 to 3 days, we host like a little session of, we have the kids come in, we have them play the game, and me and another one of my staff will kind of take notes. We'll walk around, we'll have the kids, if it's like Valorant, we'll have them break off into teams of 5, and then play the game, and then we'll kind of observe. And the things that we're kind of looking for is obviously, is the kid good at the game? That's very important. But also more, I guess, a little, just as importantly, is this kid communicating? Is this student talking to the people around them? Hey, the enemy's coming around building A. I need somebody to cover building A, or so on and so forth. So a student with strong communication skills, and then also just being able to keep calm under pressure. If things aren't going well, is this kid not going to be able to hold his own and not like panic and just do the absolute worst thing he can for the team?
That's true. Being able to stay calm under when the pressure is going on is such an important skill. If you're a competitor in esports,
yes.
I mean, people don't think of it like that because you just see two people sitting there. But
It
what you
gets
don't see is their
tense.
hearts are racing and they're pumping blood to their fingers as fast as they possibly can, and they're making a million calculations in their heads, you know. So, yeah, no, there's a lot going on under the hood there that you don't see. But with players in mind, I was wondering also what steps your esports organization, or you know, what your esports organization aspires to do like other organizations in terms of nurturing the like mental and physical well-being of your players. Because we try to ask everybody specifically what kind of resources they provide for their students in those terms.
For me, the biggest resources we try to incorporate, there's been this big push in education for social emotional learning. So like meditation is a big one that I do with the students. So I have them practice like breathing exercises, as well as creating like a routine for themselves for like, okay, this is how I'm going to go about practicing. So I'm going to do this little, it's called aim. You might be familiar with it, but aim labs is so they can practice their aiming in the game. And then I'm going to actually play the game, or just kind of helping them kind of ground themselves so that way they're calm going into this game, and they're hopefully continuing to remain calm even if things go south.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, no, definitely another very important skill to be developed from esports. So, I wanted to back out a little bit more, and I wanted you to just kind of share some more lighthearted moments or highlights from your professional gaming career. Like what, you know, did you win any tournaments back in the day? Were you a real good competitor? What's like a moment that you liked and what made those moments special?
Well, I this is going to come as a shocker. I've never actually competed in an
Okay.
esports event, but I have overseen quite a few esports events. And for me, like the biggest takeaway was I was actually a couple weeks ago. I had a student who I've known him. He kind of came in this year. He was very quiet, and he would come into our esports program and kind of do some stuff with us here and there. But he was kind of backed out, or not backed out, but he was kind of distant with us. This last spring semester, we started making announcements that we were going to be having a big Super Smash Brothers tournament for the district, and I announced that to him, and I could see like, when I was making this announcement, I could just see his eyes light up because he came up to me afterwards and he asked me, he's like, hey, can I, how do I get on the team? Like, what's the tryout process going to look like? So I sat with him. I explained how this is all going to work. He tried out for the team. He made it.
Nice.
And, we go through the whole process of, building up to this tournament. And then we finally go in April, or sorry, not April, May, early May. So a couple weeks ago. And he's at the tournament, and he approaches me, everything's going on. I'm trying to run the tournament, like the bracket and whatnot. And he comes over to me, and he's like, hey, Tyler, you got a second? I'm like, yeah, what's up, bud? He's like, hey, this is awesome, man. I really like this. Like, I'm having a blast. Like, I'm meeting some really cool people. And I could just see, like, how, like, excited he was to just be here and talk to people who are very passionate about this game that he really enjoyed to play on his own. That now he can play with other people, and he can just meet cool people and play with cool people.
Yeah, there's plenty of kids who also feel that way but don't speak up about it. A lot of times I feel like especially young boys don't get a chance to verbalize feelings like that. where it's like, hey man, like I really just appreciate what you're doing for us, like this program. But yeah, no, that's great. That's great. But the last, I guess, serious question that I wanted to ask you about kind of the esports industry. You said you started in around 2018, right? Was when you started.
Yeah, 2018-ish.
So you've kind of seen the big growth that it's experienced in the last 5 years. I was wondering what you think about like esports influencing the wider gaming industry, and what kind of trends do you think are going to develop in the future?
Well, I definitely see it kind of seeing that impact from it influencing things in the sense of, I feel like a lot of games that are coming out now need that multiplayer component. I feel I've seen like a lot of games that are coming out there like, oh yeah, we have this cool single player game, but we've also got this little multiplayer thing that you can kind of compete in and whatnot. So I see that kind of being influenced again from this rise in esports and multiplayer type games. But I guess, sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
It was just, how has the growth of esports influenced the wider gaming industry, and just do you foresee any trends in the future?
I see, in terms of trends, I definitely see more towards a move towards monetization as a whole, and I see that being pioneered a lot, like monetization in the sense of like microtransactions, like you buying like little skins and stuff for your character and whatnot. I see that very much popping up a lot, like in League of Legends, Valorant, Overwatch. That is definitely been the money maker for these games, because usually they're free to play, so that's been their big money maker. And I definitely have been seeing a lot of first party single player games. They're getting influenced by that idea of, oh, we can sell them skins, even though it doesn't offer any benefits to your character, but it is something cool you can do. And I feel like that's going to be getting more and more ramping up as the years go on, and that's definitely being influenced by esports. That's how they're making their bread and butter right now.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about single player versus like multiplayer being kind of the next big thing. And yeah, like even Overwatch, I think they recently announced that they were getting rid of their PvE, which is like the single player mode, and they're just going to be focusing on PvP. So yeah, I think that definitely does reflect that trend for sure. But yeah, no, thank you. That's very interesting. We're actually coming to a close here pretty soon, but a little bit of a more lighthearted question I wanted to ask you was, just to close this out, is what do you think the best video game of all time is? Or your personal favorite video game. Doesn't necessarily have to be an esport.
Well, my personal favorite, I'm a big Legend of Zelda guy.
Okay.
We just had our big game come out for us. So right now my favorite is still Breath of the Wild, but I'm playing through the new Tears of the Kingdom game that just came out.
Nice.
And it's definitely on track to take my number one spot, but we'll see.
I believe it. Yeah. No, I bought that game for my girlfriend, my now fiance, actually, and I just like lent it to her one summer because I was leaving to work at camp, and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna have time to play this game. I think you'd love it. And she's bought Tears of the Kingdom before I did. I still don't have it yet. I think I should get it though, because everybody keeps telling me to play it.
It's phenomenal.
Including you, yeah. No, I mean, it's basically just the old game, but plus like a ton of more content. No,
I mean, I definitely, I remember there's a lot of pushback. People were like, oh, it's the same map, like how different, it looks like it's just the same exact game, but
if you're a real gamer, you know how creative games can be with the same map,
Oh, absolutely. And just how much they can pack into it. It's crazy to me. Like I've put probably, not proud to say this, I probably put in close to 20 hours since it came out, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of it.
Oh, I believe it for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Tyler. Appreciate you coming out here onto the Esports Connection. This has been a wonderful show. We appreciate you being on the program, and we'll see you next time on the Esports Connection.
Hang on one second. All right, there we go. Talking to myself here. Welcome to the Esports Connection. Thanks for tuning in, and tell the world about us here. We want to connect with everybody. Streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.